Okay, so my phone ran out of memory, so I had to delete a few things. So I'm just gonna walk you through what I did and what I had to delete the video because it was not complete. But basically, I put the seal in, one of the beefier seals. It's about as big as this opening here, with the flat side facing up. And then I put this, I'll just call it a shaft, whatever this thing is, or maybe a pinion, whatever. I put it in there, that way, because we had to hammer it out from this way to take it out. Obviously I have to put it back that way. Then I put the bearing in, and the bearing is basically, I was able to find this bearing here from Advanced Auto Parts, because they don't, like, no stores sell bearings just for this pump specifically. Basically I used a 13 millimeter socket to kind of tap it in as much as it went, and then I used the 15-inch or 15 millimeter socket to finish pressing it in, because the 13 millimeter started catching on here and the bearing wouldn't go past that point, so you have to use 15. I mean, you might as well start off with like a 15, maybe 14 millimeter socket, or if you have like a press with the proper spacers and all that. But basically now what we're going to be doing is putting everything back together. I'm just going to take out real quick what I've put in so that I can redo it with you watching me do it. So, and I'm going to be using the ATF fluid because I did some research on why some people use ATF for power steering. Basically, ATF is another, well, just like the power steering fluid, they're both hydraulic fluids. And in some cases, I've read that the ATF is actually more beneficial. But I don't know about that 100%, but maybe. I don't know. And it's pretty cheap. So I was going to use the just this cheap Walmart ATF, but I couldn't find it. But I did find this general ATF fluid that I don't even know where I had it from. It's been so long that I got it. But anyway, so after you put the bearing in, you put the snap ring in there. Make sure you hold it with one hand so it doesn't, in case if it snaps off, it doesn't fly across the room. Boom, it's in. Now you're down here. Next thing you do is you go down here. Make sure you lube everything. I did not lube anything in the previous video, but I figure it's gonna be a good thing this time. So, gonna do that. Now you will need this bigger O-ring. Make sure you lube it up as well. I guess you can just put it in first. Okay, it's in, and then you get these spacer washers or whatever they're called. They're basically acting as a spring. And then you get the smallest ring, O-ring, because there's going to be like 3 O-rings that are like on the smaller side. You get the smallest one to go over the top here, over the washers there. Then you get this part here, this thing, kind of a little bit up too, all around. Make sure that that bigger O-ring slides on it easier. Because in the previous attempt to film this, it would not really do that easy. So this time I'm doing it right. Ish. Okay, that's in. Now you get this thing. You're gonna have a number and a number and a letter. I have an N and a number 5. I'm assuming yours would probably have the same thing. I mean, obviously a little bit up as well. I hope I don't get too messy because I have to take this stuff inside. Because it's dark and cold. So yeah, the number and the letter. Oh, and there's also like a dot here. They're facing up. I can't remember what I said before that. But oh, I guess lube up the seating so it slides in easier. Make sure there are notches here on the water pump housing, I guess, and every one of these components has also the notches on the side of them, 2 notches on each side. That's for these pins right here. These pins will have to slide in there later, so make sure that you match those up as best as you can. Okay. Shit, my dogs are coming home. Does anybody else have pugs? Are they always that mean to everybody when they're in pack? The best dogs, but man, are they so mean when they're together. Anyway, get this mechanism. It has 2 dots on the bottom of it, and it has to go down like this, with the dots facing down. Also, these I don't know what these are called, but I'll just call them tabs or something like that. Basically, on one side they're rounded, on the other side they're square. So make sure the rounded side goes on the outside of this, I'll just call it a drum or something, because the round part has to slide inside of this I don't know, washer, whatever. Excuse me my lack of technical language here. Oh, couldn't find the last one. Here it is. Okay, make sure you lube that up as well. There we go. Lube it up. Just gonna give it a little spin. Lube it up a little bit more. You know the drill. Okay. Now there's one more O-ring I don't know where it's going, because when I took this thing apart, I never had one like that. So maybe it's for different kind of like maybe a little bit different power steering pump. It doesn't say in here exactly which vehicle, but it doesn't matter. Then you take your gasket right here, and basically has 5 holes, 4 for the bolts, and this one hole is the bigger one on this side. That's where the longer bolt goes through to, I think it's to mount the thing to the bracket when you mount it to the car. And then same thing here on this cover is this big hole goes this way, because that's how the long bolt goes through. I wonder if I put everything together correctly. Okay, let's start tightening these bolts. So the 4 bolts that hold this cover, this lid, whatever, are the longest ones. They look about 1.25 inches maybe. So, and all the bolts that go in here are 12mm, which is nice, super convenient. Yeah, so you just start tightening this down, and there used to be a pretty big gap. I can squeeze it together, but once I started tightening the bolts, the gap disappeared, so that's nice. I'm not gonna use any RTV. I don't want to clog this thing in case if any RTV gets squeezed into the pump, and that's gonna be a disaster. I mean, I was rebuilding this thing, so I don't have any problems with it. And this seal, or this gasket, is gonna last me another, I mean, until this car just rusts all the way through, and I just send it to a scrapper or something. But let's hope that doesn't happen soon. And there we go. That's in. There's nothing that should go there, well, at least for now. Let me tighten those up a little bit more. Okay, that's probably as tight as you should go. Like, don't put it in a vise and tighten the shit out of it, because there's really no need to. Just don't go like super ham trying to tighten those bolts. Okay. The paint is holding up pretty good, actually. And I just painted today, so it's pretty good. That's some like engine paint, like enamel, or however you say that. Now, this mechanism here, that looks like there's a spring right on the inside there. There's no way for me to show you that. And also like a little mesh type of, I don't know what that is, maybe a filter or something. So this spring here goes on like that, and that goes inside there. But I'm probably gonna load this up first too. Well, I don't think it's gonna matter that much. But I'll put the spring on there and just stick it in there. I wonder what that thing is needed for. Either way. Now, what I'm gonna do is, and I'm also gonna degrease everything later, and once I guess I'm gonna paint this first before attaching the hose, or maybe tape this off so there's no paint on here. I don't know. I'm probably gonna paint this so the hose doesn't really let it rust or anything. So for this thing, oh, don't forget your seal or O-ring. I can't decide yet. I think it's the bigger one of all the smallest ones, but it doesn't, like, it wants to kind of get out of this seating place, and when I put this middle size one, we put the smallest one inside there. This is the middle one basically, and that's the biggest one of the smallest ones, this one right here, and this one doesn't want to go on here. Like, no matter what I do, it doesn't want to stay on there. So I'm assuming it's this one. Just kind of work your way in. I don't know. Just kind of tighten it up a little bit. Just as soon as it starts threading in, like, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a gap here. I'm gonna take my tweezers. I don't know. I'm just gonna stick it in there so it sits in its seating spot there, and it doesn't like jump out. Let me get the thin ones. Oh, that's it. Cool. Yeah, I guess that's the best thing I could do in this situation. Tighten that. Remember, this is the way you probably want to tighten it. Do not like use any kind of vise or anything, because this whole thing is like aluminum, so it's gonna, these bolts are gonna strip the aluminum, and you're probably gonna see a lot of leaks if you do strip stuff. So now we get this longer bolt. It's like, it goes in like that. Let me remember how I did this. Okay. So basically, the washers, including in the kit, those are copper washers. They're the bigger ones, the ones that go on this bolt here. The other smaller ones that I'm gonna have to reuse, they go on this bolt. So put one washer here on the bolt, then get your hose. Oh man, I'm gonna try to remember how this went on there. Probably like that. Yeah, I think like this. Somehow. Like this maybe? It's okay. Oh, haha, never mind. It went on like this first. So here's the... Shit, no. Let me see how it makes sense. Oh, yes, yes. That's how it goes in. So the bolt, the longer bolt with the brand new washer goes in. Then you get the other brand new washer on this side of it. And you put it in like this. Just tighten it. You have to push it in a little bit. And then after that, you have this hose that goes on. Turn this a little bit like this way. Basically, you grab the other bolt, the shorter one, and you reuse the older copper washers. Get it in like this. Oh, whoops. And don't forget the other washer on the other side. Boom. So it's gonna be something like that. I'm gonna tighten everything a little bit more after I'm done recording the video. Basically, all you're left with is 2 of these seals that, I mean, don't really go anywhere. And then also this locking washer that goes, so the pulley that the belt spins on goes here on these like grooves here. The pulley goes on there, and then goes this locking washer, and then goes the nut. So basically that's it right there. Also have this bracket that goes on this way. Yes, this way, because there's a little cutout here for like on this side of the bracket for this thing, so it doesn't move maybe, or maybe so it stays in the same position and doesn't twist or something like that. And you get these 2, those look like 1/2 inch maybe, bolts. Oh wait, no, that's not it. Get this longer one. I mean, you're supposed to have one more that goes there. Well, one more of these bolts that goes there, but I took it off while the pump was still mounted onto the car. Why do I want to go on there? There we go. But I'm not going to tighten it all the way because I'm still going to take it off and basically paint the pump all over again. You can still keep the old of these washers that went on this nut, which is what I'm going to do. And you're left with these two bolts that go, oh, I think they go, alright, yep, they go like this. There's also a cutout here for this for this piece of metal. Sorry for the lack of technical terms and all the crap. But basically, it sits like that, and it goes inside this cutout here. So I'm just gonna mount the bracket like that. So this is basically the cover or the lid. Okay, and that's how your pump should look. Oh, like this. Somewhat assembled. Okay. Any questions? Any questions, please comment. Good luck.